Morning everybody. You can see down at the finish line there some of the biggest fellas in these World Championships. Men's shot putters are out. All the main contenders are there and they're going to try and qualify for the final tomorrow. And interestingly enough, on the biography list that we get, the first man on the page is Dylan Armstrong, by dint of the fact that he comes from country right at the beginning of the alphabet. But after that we have Miknovic, Nelson, Cantwell and Hoffer. I'm sure all of the main contenders will make it through to the final, although the standard this year at these World Championships is possibly higher than I've seen it for many years in the past. Well, the stadium, interestingly enough, during some morning sessions has actually been a little bit busier than it actually has in the evenings, but we have lots of trips of school children, and they come here in coaches in their thousands, so we've got a packed house here for what is a very busy morning indeed. And just to let you know what the qualifying conditions for the shot put are, 20 meters 60 is required to go through to the final, or the 12 best performers. There's one of the Americans. There are two pools. Christian Cantwell, this fellow's teammate, is actually the defending champion from 2009, but as I was mentioning earlier, we have defending champion, I think that's Adam Nelson over there. He was champion back in 2005. We also have the champion from 2003 as well, Miknovic of Belarus. So in shot putting terms, it certainly is a star-studded field. One or two other men who are in form are Thomas Majewski of Poland, Ralph Bartels of Germany. There's a very good 21-year-old from Germany as well called David Storr. He's a 21-meter performer. So very warm for all the competitors. And one of the Americans, Adam Nelson, as I was saying, champion in 2005, that's Majewski, the Pole. Nelson, in the World Championships, he was champion in 2005, he got silvers in 2001, 2003, 2007, a little bit of a dip in form in 2009 where he came fifth. He's not the biggest shot putter in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but he has a lovely pre-throw routine, which I'm sure we'll see here now, and incredibly explosive. The majority of the Americans, like Randy Barnes, the world record holder there, adopting the rotational technique. Interesting that the championship record holder, Werner Gunther of Switzerland, he was 3 times a world champion. That was set way back in 1987.
The qualification conditions are rather varied in these championships. In the discus we have the unique situation that not a single competitor achieved the qualification standard to go through for automatic position in the final. Of course we always take the top 12. That was really not taking account of wind conditions, I think. But in the women's shot there was 13 people who qualified, Paul, and I think there's every chance that there'll be quite a good number that will get the 2060 here in the men's.
No, I agree entirely. One or two of the athletes going around shaking hands. You know, when these athletes are on the Diamond League circuit, they compete against each other on a regular basis. Even the Americans, they come over to Europe. There's the lineup for Pool A. Ryan Whiting of the United States at the bottom of the page there, perhaps not the best known of the Americans, but he is very useful. Thomas Majewski there. Ralph Bartels, a very solid performer from Germany, 21-meter thrower at best. And Andrei Semenov of the Ukraine has produced some pretty big throws this year as well. Miknovic, one of the favourites I think for the title. He's throwing just after the former champion Adam Nelson.
And the top young talent in their field also there, Paul, David Storr of Germany.
Yes, he is. He really is a man on form, and he's proved, as he did in the European Under-23 Championships, and one or two other meets as well, he certainly is a very fine competitor. And if anybody Americans wondering just how far 21 meters is, you just want to pace it out sometimes. Take some big strides 21 times and you get some sort of idea. Christian Cantwell of America, defending champion. Pavel Lijin, another Belarusian who's in good form, as is Carlos Veliz, the Cuban, and we know how well the Cubans have done here in Daegu already. Dylan Armstrong, a man in form, top thrower in the Commonwealth, and Reese Hoffer, another former champion.
So just mentioned Veliz, he's down as a 21-40 thrower, but I think most of us regard that as extremely dubious. There was a competition in South America where they all threw about 1.5 meters further than they normally do.
I know of a shot put circle like that in Great Britain, in Surrey. Well, certainly these early morning sessions, you know, Peter, we were talking about the non-qualification, if you like, of the discus throws the other day. These guys don't really like throwing at this time in the morning. I guess most of their training sessions would be done probably later on in the morning, early afternoon, early evening. And it does take some time for them to walk up. So we may find some of the 21-meter throwers plus just getting the cobwebs out of their system, maybe on the first throw, possibly qualifying on the second throw. And as you can see, it's very, very hot indeed. In the commentary box here, the sun has just disappeared overhead, so it's not directly in our eyes, but I can tell you it's still very warm. These guys have no shelter whatsoever down there. Well, they do actually. It's the greenhouse. It's got a perspex top to it and not very much use at all, except somewhere to sit down if you wanted to.
All the more reason, if they possibly can then, to get a good put out in the first round so that they can then leave the arena. And having said, of course, that no one likes competing in the early morning, I guess it's part of meticulous preparation for a championships now that you do know you're likely to have to compete in the morning, and really, I guess you should prepare for just that. Absolutely right. Yes, there's no point in training at 6 o'clock in the evening if you know that the qualifying competition is so early. So the first man to throw is the Argentinian Germán Lauro. Just over 20 meters at his very best. Starting off with a rotational throw, you'll see some of the gliders a little bit later on, and that's right about the 1940 mark. And, the usual analysis of his technique, as he signifies over to his coach what he thinks went wrong. Not a bad start. 1950, in fact. Yeah, Steve, you were signalling something to me just a little while ago when I was saying you don't know how far 20-odd meters is. If you sort of compared it to a football pitch, where would it be?
Well, that's right. I mean, just to get an idea for football fans out there, if you took a penalty in the football match, you had to get it past the goalie, and you thought that was far away. Imagine twice the distance again, getting a shot put past one of the goalies, and that's the equivalent of 21 metres in the shot. But these are massive distance. It doesn't look very far from where we are, or sometimes the camera angle does foreshorten it. But these are very big men, virtually the mortars of human biology, really, and they really can catapult this ball way, way out there, far beyond the understanding of most people, really.
Well, this fellow's going to be popular here this morning. Hwang of Korea, second to throw. Big cheer by the crowd. He was announced. The crowd cheered. He threw and the crowd cheered, but certainly down on the first line, which is 19 metres. There you are, 17.75. I think it's safe to say he won't qualify with that, but I hope he enjoys the experience here in what is quickly becoming a packed stadium this morning.
And we're about to start the track action with the 5,000 metres. There will be two races. O'Farah there, the world leader this year.
Was better 10,000 metres in the European Championship. Obviously, we go back now to the shot put though. We'll come back to the 5 in a minute.
Thanks, Dean. Marco Schmidt of Germany, first round, of course, with the 2 pools, trying to qualify for the final. This guy's a glider, and he's getting it out there, certainly just short of the automatic qualifying line, which is 20 metres 60. And these really are the biggest and strongest men in athletics. Some of the discus throwers are taller, but these guys are certainly the most strong of all the competitors. 20.06, not far enough. He will have to throw again. This guy, I guess you could christen him Mr. Muscles, Carlos Veliz. Very, very strong Cuban. Rose to prominence this year with a 21.40 throw, but there was some doubt about the validity of the distance.
Next best is 20.15.
Hits it low and getting close there to the qualifying mark. That's one of the longest that we've seen so far. Didn't qualify for the final in Beijing. To remember, on that occasion he was struggling to get over 20 metres. There we have it though, 2024. He's in first place for the time being, but we're yet to see some of the really, really good throws. And one of those is Lijin of Belarus, 2085 this year. Not as big as the Cuban, but again a rotator and very fast at the end. Holds it into the neck, spins. Good balance, but his first throw not particularly good. Finished 6th in the last World Championships. I always think the rotational form of the technique, despite the fact some prodigious distances have been achieved, it's a little bit precarious and sometimes erratic.
Well, meanwhile, in the Australian and then Alhamda of Saudi Arabia, but really all the field, apart from just one man, tailed off.
Well, that was the site of the first automatic qualifier, the Olympic champion Tomasz Majewski of Poland. He really is majestic, dare I say. Tremendous competitor in major championships in recent years. He's often come through with a lifetime best performance. 2073, he's finished, he can leave the stadium and get out of this heat. Well, here is another fine competitor, Ralph Bartels of Germany. I'm very impressed with the way that he's handled himself in majors in recent years. Another glider or shifter, stays low and hits it. Not great use of the legs there. That may be right on the limit. He came through to win the European Championships in the very last round in 2006, and twice he's been a World Championship bronze medalist. So another athlete that, providing he qualifies 2045 second place, he could contend for a medal in the final.
Well, we're back in the
cycling process begins there for Lajos Kerti of Hungary. The man hoping to go the automatic qualifying distance of 2060. Only one has done that so far, Tomasz Majewski. So getting on there, certainly over the 20-metre mark, I think. Not the biggest of men, not the fastest either. Certainly with this rotational technique, you have to employ a lot of speed at the end. He's just 24 years old, which is comparatively young for a world-class shot putter. Just short of 20 metres, in fact, 1992. Well, I'm guessing that Christian Cantwell here of the United States, the defending world champion, will have no problems at all of achieving the automatic qualifying distance, providing, of course, he stays inside the circle. He's a massive guy. Doesn't use his legs all that well, but he's so strong. And I would say that that was an effort which for him was very, very easy. He's more used to throwing in the 2150 range. So that was a sort of 75-80% effort, and it should be enough. Oh, it's not, it's 5 centimetres short.
Well, we've also got 2:48.12 kilometres, so 2 seconds quicker than the first one.
Well, here's a man, former world champion, Andrei Miknovich, who's increased his lifetime best to 22 meters 10 at the age of 35. With a glider and just over the qualifying line, so that is an automatic place in the final. Always been a good competitor, always does well at his national championships in Belarus, and sometimes comes out into the international area and doesn't do too well. But that's okay, 20 meters 79, he's got his place in the final too. Well, Ryan Whiting, slightly overshadowed by his more illustrious teammates from the United States, but he's been throwing very well this year, over 21 meters, and that looks as though it could be a qualifying mark. Better known as a discus thrower, particularly in America, but he's specialising in the shot put this year. The shot discus combination is a very frequent one by these big guys. So high fives there from his teammate. Ryan Whiting goes through to the final, 20.77, looking very comfortable indeed. Well, David Storr, a foul in the first round. That's uncharacteristic from this 21-year-old, this outstanding 21-year-old. Been in fantastic form this year, and that is huge. He's been world youth champion, world junior champion, European under-23 champion, absolutely untouchable through all of the age group finals. A young man in what is traditionally a sport which older guys are very happy in, but 21.50 is a huge personal best.
Coming back now to the second heat of the men's 5,000.
Got through from that race, but back at the shot.
Yeah, one of the shortest world-class shot putters I think possibly there's ever been. He's only 1 meter 80. He does, however, weigh in at 180 kilos, and I'll tell you what, you ought to see him in a gym throwing weights around. This is Reese Hoffer of the United States. Fast at the end, always drives it down that left-hand side. He's got to be careful he doesn't go out of the sector, of course, or even hit the line. That would be a no-throw. But he really is a marvellous exponent of this rotational technique. And that, with the exception of David Storr of Germany, is one of the best throws that we've seen so far. 20.96, almost 21 metres. So he can pack up and go home now as Christian Cantwell comes into the circle. Only 20.55 in the first round. I think he took it a little bit too easy. He was just short of the automatic qualifying distance of 20 meters 60. I don't think he can make the same mistake this time. Bit of a faster finish there, and it's better. He'll be kicking himself because of that first throw. He's been out there an extra half hour. Lost a bit more weight because of the heat. The distance runners are not too bothered about that. I know the heavy men may get on the scales and think, oh my goodness, I've lost a couple of kilos, I must be weaker. There it is, 20.73. Fourth place, through to the final. Aptly named, Cortez of Portugal. Really has made a bit of a breakthrough this year. The man who's a rotational thrower. Quite a nice rotational technique as well. Now that's not the automatic qualifying distance. I'm just wondering if it moves them into the top 12 overall. Because if 12 men do not achieve 20 meters 50, the best 12 distances will go through to the final. Waiting patiently for the distance. 20.32, he is in 8th place, but still one more round to go. He's completed the race, he's competed in the World Championships. Meanwhile, Dylan Armstrong, another of the world's top throwers who did not get the automatic qualifying distance in the first round. This guy used to be a hammer thrower, coached by a former Olympic champion, Anatoly Bondarchuk. converted well to shot and explodes out there way beyond the 26 metre mark. 20 metre 60 mark, sorry. 26 metres would of course be well over the world record. But Dylan there, that's pretty much on 21 metres or thereabouts. Yep, thank you very much. 21.05, the longest we've seen so far this morning, bar one, and that of course was the young German David Stahl, who leads at 21.50. And surprisingly, only 4 automatic qualifiers so far, one more round to go. The 21.50, a massive lifetime best for the young German. These of course are all in Group A, and there are a couple of automatic qualifiers in Group B. There are 3 more there, led by the throw that we just saw, Dylan Armstrong of Canada. Top thrower in the Commonwealth, of course, and one of the best in the world. And at the moment, those 2 guys, Cortez and Valise, are the non-qualifiers who are the best so far.
It is all over now, so those captions are in fact showing, I think, about 20 or more have actually got through.
Well, as Peter said, it is all over. There are the qualifiers for the final, and some final it should be. I'm just looking down there, Peter, for the name of Adam Nelson. I'm not sure he's made it through. He's a former world champion. Oh, he has just. 2023, my goodness, he's living on dangerous ground there. But nevertheless, it will be a good final, I can promise you that.
There's that second round, 5,000 metres.